the one big open item for us is the survey. And at least on my side, Rob and his security process is perhaps the predominant issue. But I think there are 8 people that haven't filled them out. Andy and Dennis, I looked and saw that you both had filled out your survey. Thank you for that. Tim, if that's Tim Charlesworth, then I need a survey from you, and I will email you later to that effect, or you can just fill it out, and I won't have to bother you again. But get to those surveys, those of you that haven't, because it really, we're just trying to figure out what types of sandwiches to order, what sort of snacks to have, all those little administrative details. And the challenge with no responses is that you end up eating somebody else's sandwich, and then I'll probably eat the last sandwich, and if I end up with some sort of vegetarian thing that Volko should be eating, I'm going to be markedly upset. So,
question: when does the first event start? I mean, there's some tours in there and some other things going on.
Yeah, Dennis, Dennis, I'm working. I've got a schedule that's 90% complete, and I just need to spend the extra hour to get it done, and get it circulated to Rob and Mick for their approval. So we've got on Friday, we have a tour at 9 o'clock, 9:30 at the Battleship Cove. And then Mick's going to host a tour of certain sites in the Battle of Rhode Island in the afternoon at 1 or 2 o'clock, something like that. And then the museum will open for us to go and play games in the afternoon.
Okay.
And Rob, I'm not sure what we said, 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, one or the other. I don't remember.
I was just thinking too. I also didn't remember what we said. So
yeah, my
notes.
notes.
I think it's wrong. I think I want to double check that just to.
Yeah.
So I can chime in on that. I believe we agreed on 4 because I have 5 to 6 for my on-site teach and play, or excuse me, my on-site demo from 5 to 6, and then my events will start at 7. That's preliminary, but that's kind of how we discussed it. That's predicated on us returning from the tour and having access to the campus at about 4 o'clock.
Well, let's talk about that when I circulate the schedule and come to a conclusion that works for everybody. But I remember your timing there, Mick. So if that works, Dennis, that's kind of what we're talking about: a 4 or 5 o'clock report to the museum, and then every night I think we're gonna. Well, the Friday and Saturday we close at 11. We open early on Saturday and Sunday at 8 o'clock, and then on Sunday we shut down in the afternoon, early afternoon.
Yeah, my big question was what Friday. If that first event starts at 9, I'll have to fly in the night before.
Yeah,
and so I gotta get at my hotel room another night. So which I'll do is fine. I just need to know that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm doing as well. Hey, Mike, good to see you. So survey, their schedule is coming. There won't be much on the schedule. The big items on the schedule are each day there's a tour of the wargaming facilities at the Naval Warfare College. Saturday and Sunday there are tours, one single tour each. And then Rob's also offering a number of smaller tours of the museum by him and his crew that know the museum well. So both are going to be fun, but we need to sign up for those.
When's that sign up take place?
Well, it will take place soon. So within 30 days of the convention is usually our benchmark. But we're going to get the form out that shows everybody the schedule, and then we'll schedule all of this on tabletop events where we register, and that's going to be important and useful. So that's that. Other than that, Rob, I think I don't have a whole lot to go over. We've got a few more of these things in the works, these evening events, and we'll be recording them all, but great to have anybody here that can make it. we just added Jerry White, who did Atlantic Chase and a number of other games. So he's going to be doing one of these sessions, and then of course we'll be at the convention itself, which is going to be fun. He's a great guy and has some cool designs. As a matter of fact, he informed me when we were talking about this that not only could we do Atlantic Chase, he said he has a prototype of Pacific Chase in the works and can talk about that. So I'm very interested in that, as I'm sure many of you are. And that's the big stuff. Rob, what do you know?
Yeah, the big thing for me is still the security vetting and making sure everybody's cleared to come on the base and get there. Most people now should have received an email from me saying that you have been cleared. Everybody who sent in a form and that we have sent up, they have cleared everybody. So I'm glad to say nobody has been denied access based on the background check. That's always encouraging. There's a handful, I think there's maybe 4, 5, 6, something like that have not come back yet. So we're just waiting on a few of those. What I have found, and I was going to let everybody know, for some reason, a few of you, some of my emails, I think, are either getting filtered into your spam folder or are just not getting through. So I was going to let everybody know, if you haven't heard from me yet about your security clearance and you expected to by now, check your spam first of all and make sure it's not in there. And if you do have any questions, obviously just email me, respond to my email or post on Discord or something like that, and I can answer that for you. But the vast majority of you are good and should have heard from me by now, saying that you are all good. So that's it's encouraging for us to get that out of the way at this stage of the game. So I'm glad to be able to report that.
Yeah, well, good news. All right, well, Mick, before you kick off your teach and demo for the group, I was going to ask, how long do you think it's going to take? How much time do you want?
Well, I mean, I figured I'd stick as long as even one individual wanted more information. So, tomorrow's Saturday, I'm good for 2.5 hours if that's needed. Otherwise, I think the block is 1 hour, but as I said, at the end of an hour, anybody who wants a little more, I'll be happy to stay.
Yeah, very good. Well, this will be a great introduction to the game. And I'm going to remind everybody that GMT has very generously offered us 50% off on the game itself. Of course, we have to pay for shipping. Some other people. Today. There we go. Good for you. Mike, I know you got yours for sure. There you go. But another good time to add a game or two won't increase shipping very much, but will be to your benefit. So that discount code is available on the site and in my emails. And if you need it and don't have it, or you want me to send it to you by email, I'm happy to. And with that, Mick, you have the floor. You have the Vassal module as well. All yours.
Great. Thank you. And welcome everybody. Thanks for sharing your evening with me. Harold, how many folks do we have?
Well, right now it's 7 total.
Okay. All right. Before I get into the game itself, the situation that we find ourselves in the game, and we'll take a little tour around the map board, and then we'll jump right into some play. But before we do that, let me do a couple of housekeeping things so that we're not interrupted. First, a couple of words about the event itself when we get to Newport. This is the Battle of Rhode Island your way. And what I mean by that is I'm going to offer 2 parallel events. You can either play in the tournament, or you can do teach and play. I'll be floating between the tournament players in one room and the teach and play folks in a neighboring room, if we can swing that. I know Rob said we have some proximities there in the museum. So the schedule is set for 3 heats on the tournament side and 3 teach and play sessions on the teach and play side running at the same time. So Friday night, 7 to 10, Saturday, noon to 3, and 3 to 6. If you start out teaching in the teach and play and you get the bit between your teeth and you really like this, you can hop over to the tournament side if you want to get in on a heat over there, because the heats are playing as many or as few as those of those 3 heats as you wish to, win, lose, or draw. And then I'll simply take the highest scoring players from the heats and advance them to the semifinal and final. And I want to show you, let's see, now I have to stop sharing and then reshare. Is that right, Harold, if I want to show the trophy?
Yes.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing. And then I'm going to jump over here. Hang on. There it is. Oop. Hang on. I need to. Rats, how do I, whoops, I think I may have outsmarted myself. I found the trophy, but I need to get back into sharing. There we go.
Green share button.
Yep, got it. Here we go. All right, so this is the trophy that we're offering for the winner of the tournament. You can see Stephen B, the father of the War College. You can see behind him a period map of the Revolutionary War Battle of Rhode Island. We're calling this the Newport Skirmish. You can see the SDHist logo on there as well. This, you're looking at it in just about 100% real size. It's a cherry wood plaque. It's really quite stunning. And one of our players, Tim Miller, was the graphic designer who came up with this artwork. So we're very excited to offer this to the winner of the tournament. And in addition, I've got a couple of prizes from the gift shop up there that we'll be offering as 2nd and 3rd place prizes as well. So hopefully that'll be a little bit of incentive for you to join the tournament. Also,
now, hey, Nick, if I can ask a question.
Yep.
16 people in the tournament, I'll probably be 16th. Will I also get one of these?
So this is the 1st place
Only
trophy. Yes, this is the 1st place trophy. Again, there'll be a prize for 2nd and a prize for 3rd. But what I was just about to say is that everybody that plays, whether you play a single heat or whether you do more than that, is entitled to this. This is a specially designed commemorative button for the event, Battles of the American Revolution Newport Skirmish 2023. That's a 2 it's shown there larger than actual. It's actually a 2 1/4 standard size button that you would frequently see. But the Battles of the American Revolution over the years has created a unique button for every event that we do, and it's turned into quite a collection through the many years. And so this is the one we're going to offer. If you play it even just 1 heat, or if you sit in on a teach and play session, you'll get one of these just for coming. So I hope that's a little bit of extra incentive. And I wanted to get that.
Mark, we didn't see the button. Could you share the?
Oh, you don't? It says it says I'm sharing my screen.
You're sharing the award. So you have to share the separate picture.
Can you see it now?
Rendering, just give it a minute. There we go.
Okay. I guess I neglected to get out of the one before showing the other. That's what I did. So here I was describing it. You didn't even see what I was talking about. But there you have the 1st Rhode Island Regiment defending their redoubt against the several attacks by Hessian chasseurs. Off in the distance, lower left, there's a British frigate in the Narragansett Bay that's supporting that combined arms attack against the redoubt. But it's a nice button, 2¼ inches. You can get it just for playing in the tournament, whether you win or not, or just for sitting in with us at one of the teach and play sessions. So again, 3 heats, and in parallel, 3 teach and play sessions. And then of course, the semifinalists and finalists on the tournament side will go on and continue. The final will be on Sunday morning, and that's going to be, where is my, I'm sorry guys, I seem to have lost my
Take your time, Nick. No worries.
map. Hang on, here we go. Here we go. So what we're looking at here is the Battle of Rhode Island as it was fought historically, and that's what we're going to use in all the heats and in the teach and plays, just like we're going to review tonight. But whoever the 2 finalists end up being on the tournament side, they're going to play in the Battle of Newport, which is on the reverse side of this map. It's a larger battle. It involves the French. It will take probably 5 or 6 hours to play that final. We'll start Sunday morning, and we'll be finishing up at about the time they're going to want to boot us out of the museum. So that's kind of the format. That's why I'm calling it the Battle of Rhode Island your way. If you're a competitive kind of person and you want to get in the tournament, we'd love to have you. And if you just want to play casually, socially, well, we'll give you those opportunities on the teach and play side. Are there any questions, guys, about that before we jump into the game? Hearing none, I'll move on. So you're looking at basically the northern end of Echidnic Island. Your orientation here is north is to your left. There's a down here in the bottom sort of middle left, I'm circling around the compass rose. So north is to your left. And if you were to join the Newport map with this Rhode Island map, it would extend off to the right, extending all the way down to the city of Newport, which is located on the southern end of the island. On the 29th of August, the British sentries, when the sun came up, discovered that the Americans had abandoned their siege lines. And so the game begins with the British forces, British and German forces, in pursuit of the withdrawing Americans as they make their way north up the island, attempting to cross over to the mainland up here at Howland's Ferry, off the map in this direction here. So let's take a quick look around the map board so we know what we're looking at. Across the bottom here is the game turn track. You'll notice turn 1 has fixed player order with the red shading indicating that the British player goes first on turn 1, followed by the American player. The rest of the turns are random player order. So there's a die roll for initiative to determine who goes first. It is certainly possible to get back-to-back turns. You'll notice here when the Americans go second on turn 1, if they win initiative, they'll go first on turn 2 and have that back-to-back move. So as you're playing the game, you always want to be alert to what the turn track is suggesting might happen. It can be decisive if you get a back-to-back move at precisely the right time. The turn track also identifies things throughout the course of the game. Let me enlarge this just a little bit. Come down here and take another look. So we can see that, I'm going to hide the units here so you can see that more clearly. It tells you when reinforcements are due. It talks about sortie restrictions, which is a special rule in this game that I'll mention in a second. It talks about victory check and opportunity card check right there. It talks about Offshore bombardment can begin starting on turn 5. So it's just got reminders on it that help you keep up with what should be occurring as the game progresses. Let's go back down to our 20% here. To the right of the turn track right here, and Rob Doan, you're still with us. This should be showing that the Americans start with 1 momentum chit. And I'm
It's
noticing
because you did the units, those numbers are like units in there. So when you show them, it'll show up.
got
again.
it. So I'll put the units back, and there you can see. Let me enlarge that as well. So the game has a function in it called momentum. Momentum is earned as the game progresses. Momentum can be spent as well. You can spend momentum to influence that initiative die roll to give yourself a better opportunity of getting the initiative on a game turn if you want to try that. Or momentum can be used to call back and force a re-roll of a combat dice if it goes against you badly and you want to give that another throw. You can also use momentum to purchase opportunity cards, which we'll talk about in a second. There are 5 momentum chits in the game. That's core to my system. Every BoAR game comes with 5 momentum chits, and typically the battle will start with one side or the other in possession of one of them. Sometimes neither side gets them, but in this case, we see the Americans have 1, and then, as I said, they can be earned and spent as the game progresses. Over here to the left bottom, that's the 2 decks of opportunity cards. When the game starts, both players draw 2 of them. The cards are pretty self-explanatory. They can affect movement, they can affect combat, they can affect initiative, they can affect army morale. There's a lot of things that can be influenced by the cards. It's not a card-driven system, it's a card-enhanced game system. Above the decks, you see an offshore bombardment table. The British have a squadron of 5 ships that enter the game beginning on turn 5, and they can lend offshore fire support to close combat. They can lend it if you're attacking, if the British player is attacking, and they can also lend it in defensive support if the British player is under attack. Historically, it was very ineffective. They tried twice, and so the British player will get 2 attempts in the course of the game to use his offshore bombardment. On a throw of 0 to 6, there's no effect. You can see 7, 8, you get a modifier of 1, and a throw of a 9, you get a modifier of 2. Those are modifiers to the actual close combat die that's going to take place. So the ships in and of themselves don't cause damage. They simply give you die roll modifiers. Over here on the bottom right, let me minimize that just a little bit, is the opportunity card casualty track. Again, there are opportunity cards in the game. We start with 2, but opportunity cards can be earned through several mechanisms, and one of them is by causing casualties to your opponent. I'm going to move this. Let me see here. I'm going to move that out of my way so you can get a better look at this. So every time the British player takes a step loss, he's going to advance the step strength points lost marker. Tongue twister there. If that gets to 2 British strength points lost, the American player draws an opportunity card. That happens again on the 4th strength point lost, on the 6th strength point lost, and that's it. That's maxed out. On the other side, the Americans, they track their losses. When they get to 3 losses, the British player draws a card. When they get to 6, the British player draws a second card. So that's another way in which you can earn opportunity cards. These are opportunity units. They are units that come into the game by virtue of card play. So they're not in the game unless you draw the corresponding card. Here we have a little summary of leader losses, how they affect victory points and army morale. At the top of the board is the army morale track, and this is really the game within the game. If you're not familiar with the battles of the American Revolution system, it's a non-sanguine combat results table. So you're not going to have catastrophic losses. You're not going to have overwhelming casualties. What you're going to get primarily are disruptions, retreats. You're going to be occasionally causing the opponent a step loss or two. You're going to be basically eroding their will to fight, which is represented on this track here. So long as your marker is in the high morale area, then everything is fine. You get to add one. Notice where I'm pointing my cursor. You get to add one to that initiative die roll if you're in high morale to determine or to influence who's going to go first. And the unit morale of your units is normal. Let me zoom in on a unit here. So looking at the 43rd foot, you see three numbers. 5 is strength, 4 is movement, and that little +1 number is the morale of that unit. And so if you're in high morale, the 43rd foot, which has a printed +1, would be +1. But once you get down to fatigued, notice that you now add 0 to your initiative die roll, and you subtract 1 from your printed unit morale. Now the 43rd foot, if the army was fatigued, its morale would be 0. When you're wavering, now you're actually subtracting 1 from the initiative die roll, making it considerably more difficult to get those back-to-back moves. And your unit morale suffers a -2. So that 43rd foot would now be a -1 unit morale. Unit morales are important because they affect the combat die roll modifiers, and they affect the ability of a unit to rally from disruption. So this really is the game within the game. And as you're playing a BoAR game, you should always have a weather eye out for the relative positions of your army and your opponent's army on the morale track. The tactical situation may be what it is on the map. It may appear as if you have a real opportunity to make an attack. However, if you're attacking someone whose morale is high and your own morale at that point is down here 4 or 5 or God forbid wavering, well then that's probably an ill-advised attack, no matter what the tactical situation may appear to present. And you'll see how that all plays as I do some turns here and show you how that's going to work. Let me not quite sure. I think I'm going to get this bar out of my way. It's kind of bothering me. Show small. I'm going to just show. There, I'll move it. All right, and what else can we look at on the map board here? Terrain key across the top, very helpful until you memorize, what the different terrain features are. And of course, there is a terrain effects chart. Here's where you keep up with units that are captured, units that are eliminated. The scoring is a little bit different for captured units and eliminated units, which is why we distinguish them. On the map, we've got some reinforcement hexes for the Americans, A1, A2, A3. For the British, B1, B2, B3. When you look at wooded terrain, if you see woods like this right here, where the trees are on an otherwise, what would that be? That would be sort of an off-white colored space. Then that's considered light woods. But where you see the trees a little bit thicker with a green base underneath, that's heavy woods. And the distinction there has to do with movement point costs. This would be an orchard. It's treated as light woods. This would be a slope. This is the upslope side here, and you can see the hash marks showing the downslope side. These are crops, homesteads, fords over the creeks, roads are obvious. I think if you've played any kind of hex game, most of this terrain should look very familiar. This feature right here, this particular type of crop feature is a cornfield. All the other crops like these over here, they're really there for artistic purposes. They have no effect on play, but the cornfields do. The cornfields block line of sight. This is pre-harvested corn. The corn is standing tall, so it will block line of sight for ranged fire, and it will affect movement for artillery. So when artillery attempts to move through corn, it'll have to pay a little bit higher cost. These hexes with the outlines around them are victory hexes. You can see the red and blue star tells you that it's an objective for both sides, and the blue outline tells you that when the game starts, it's American controlled. There's one other of those down here on the artillery readout. There's showing that it's an objective for both, and it starts out American controlled. There's also this objective here. Let me hide the units. Right here, this is the Butts Hill Fort, which, by the way, will be one of the stops we have on our tour of the battlefield sites when we're up there in Newport. This is just red. This is the decisive victory hex for the British. If they can penetrate all the way to here and control this hex, they will win the game decisively. These others are victory point hexes. Hence, the stars are smaller, and again, they're red and blue. All right, another quick look at the units, and I think we'll be ready to make some moves. Here I'm hovering over the Hessian 1st Ansbach Regiment. Again, the large number bottom left is strength points, and in this scale, gentlemen, every strength point for troops is 100 men. I should say that every hexagon is 200 yards across. The second number, large number on the bottom right, is the movement point value. So you would expend movement points like you would in any hex game to move across the map. We'll show you examples of how that's done here in a minute. The small number, as I've already indicated, is the unit morale. So you'll notice the first Ansbach Regiment has a unit morale of 0. We also have the unit name, and we have the starting hex location number 2233. This unit is a little different. Still 2 strength points, movement of 4, unit morale of +2. So this is a crack unit, von der Malsburg. The designation LT on the unit tells you it's light infantry. And again, that matters because they're harder to hit in ranged fire, and they can move through the heavy woods without the additional movement penalties. And that 5-pointed yellow star tells you that this particular unit is classed as a demi-leader. We have regular leaders, like over here, von Lossberg is a leader, and up here we have Brigadier Smith. He's a leader. By the way, where we couldn't find portraits of the historical people, we use the national crest. So that's the coat of arms of Hesse, which you see on the von Lossberg unit there. So we have actual leaders that will affect the game, but in this case, von der Malsburg is a demi-leader. Whereas a leader gives you values, you'll notice a 116. That means he adds a die roll modifier of 1 in combat. That's the left number. He influences the rally die roll with a +1. That's the middle number. And his movement is 6. Von der Malsburg doesn't have those die roll modifiers baked in. But again, he's a demi-leader. What that means is that in combat, he's going to be able to pick, and I want to show you an example of this. Let's see, that's going to be under not counters. That's going to be under charts. And that's going to be there we go. That's going to be artillery tactics. Okay, this is the tactics matrix. You'll notice that the tactics matrix has 3 shades on it. Right here in the most pale shade are the tactics that you can always use in combat, whether or not you have a leader. You'll always be able to skirmish. You'll always be able to attack an echelon. You'll always be able to stand fast, and you'll always be able to withdraw. You must have a leader, however, in order to then go to the additional tactics of frontal assault and commit reserve. And you must have a leader and an open flank in order to go all the way out to the final 2 tactics, turn and refuse flank. The demi-leader, von der Malsburg, who I was just showing you, the demi-leader allows you as a player to select all the tactics, even though you don't have an actual leader present. So von Lossberg, the Hessian leader, may be somewhere else on the battlefield, but von der Malsburg chasseurs will always be able to pick all the tactics because they have demi-leader status. The Americans have a demi-leader as well. Here he is, Colonel John Lawrence. You'll notice he's also a strength of 2, movement of 4. His unit morale is +1, but he's also light infantry, and he has that star on him, which tells you that he's a demi-leader. I think Lawrence and von der Malsburg are the only 2 demi-leaders in this particular countermix. The artillery, I've highlighted that stack there so you can see there's a Hessian artillery battery. Whereas the strength points on combat units like infantry are 100 men per strength point, the strength points for guns are 2 pieces per strength point. So that Hessian battery is literally made up of 2 tubes, movement of 3, unit morale of 1. We have some British guns up here. Same thing. That's Innis. Strength point of 1, which means it's 2 guns in that battery. By contrast, back here at the Butts Hill Fort, we've got an American battery rated 3 strength points. That means there are 6 guns there. They're also rated heavy. You'll see if I could stop jiggling my cursor long enough for that image to hold still. Here we go. You can see the word heavy on there. Heavy artillery has a range of 4, whereas field guns have a range of 3. And that's summarized on the player aid card that comes with the game. There's a little characteristics chart so you can identify the ranges and the characteristics of the different guns. Also, the artwork is a little different. You can see that that's a beefier gun, the way it's drawn artistically compared to this one, which is the just the regular field gun. All right. There's more that I could say, but I think the best thing to do is just launch right into some turns, and I'll explain what I'm doing as I'm doing it, why I'm doing it, and walk you through movement, combat, and some tactics. But the final thing before we can start is both players have to draw their starting opportunity cards. I've logged in as the British player, so you're going to be able to see my 2 cards that I'm about to draw as the British player into my starting hand. Superior gunnery. This is good. Remember, I was talking about British offshore bombardment with my flotilla. This is going to give me +2 die roll when I roll on that bombardment table. If drawn at night, discard and draw again. Well, this is not nighttime, so that card is valid, and I'll just have that card in my hand until I have a need to do my bombardment, and then I'll have a choice of using it or not. My second card is stone walls. Stone walls were ubiquitous. They're everywhere on the battlefield, and so we've got cards in the deck that recur or occur and allow you to get that modifier to either defensive artillery fire or close combat. So that's good. Those are good cards to have. Now I'm going to get out of that page. I'm going to flip myself over here now to the American side, and I'm going to pull the American player's starting 2 cards. General Pigot is exhausted. General Pigot is the British overall commander, and notice it says this card may not be held, and that's printed in red, so it jumps right out at you if you draw it. There are several cards in both decks that may not be held and must be played as soon as they're drawn. This wants us to replace General Pigot with the opportunity unit, Major General Prescott. No VP or Army morale adjustments. So let's, we're going to play this card to the board because we have to. And then we're going to come over here. General Pigot starts the game on the turn track as a replacement. There he is right there. So I'm going to replace with Prescott. And there's Prescott. And Prescott was the second in command. He was responsible for leading a night attack that achieved an element of surprise. So this is a good card, or a good exchange of leader counters. All right, let's go back into the cards and draw our second card at start card. Shore battery. Whoa, check this out now. Play during shore bombardment. So now keep in mind, neither player sees the other player's cards. These are secret. So I'm the British player. Imagine I've drawn the superior gunnery card, and I'm all giddy because I think that when we get to shore bombardment, I'm going to have that extra advantage with my superior gunnery that's going to allow me maybe to get a good outcome on my bombardment table. Unbeknownst to me, the American players got a masked shore battery that's going to cancel a shore bombardment by the British player. So I'm going to deploy my fleet. I'm going to move up into firing range. I'm going to declare a bombardment. I'm going to lay that superior gunnery card down. And the American player is going to go, He'll throw the shore shore battery card out and trump the British player's attempt to get that advantage. That's pretty cool. Something that we're not going to experience tonight, but that is in the rules of the game, the British player cannot examine American stacks. when you're playing the vassal module normally, when you hover over the enemy, all you can see is the top unit. Like over here, Colonel Lawrence. Right now tonight, we can see everything in his stack. But if we were playing this as a live 2-player vassal game, all you'd see is Colonel Lawrence, and there'd be question marks over the other units. You wouldn't know what they were. And in live play, the British player cannot rifle through American stacks. The only time you can look is when you're declaring fire combat, because you have to be able to pick a target. I'll show you how that works. Or when you're declaring close combat, because you have to calculate odds and modifiers. But you're not allowed to move up, say you're going to fire, look at the enemy stack, and then change your mind. Once you declare fire, you must fire. And once you declare combat, you must execute the combat, even if the math goes against you. All right, we're going to start down here on the West Road with the Hessians. Okay, von der Malsburg historically opened this battle by attacking Talbot, Talbot's advanced screening force here. So we're going to do that. We're going to come straight up the road. 1, 2, 3, 4. The guys back here, they're going to use strategic movement. If you start on a road, your entire move is along a road, and at no time do you come adjacent to an enemy, then you can double your movement. So first Ansbach will go 1/2, 1, 1/2, 2, 2.5. He can't go that extra half because you can never come adjacent to an enemy while you're in strategic movement. We're going to take our Hessian artillery, 1/2, 1, whoops, 1/2, 2, 1/2, 3. And coming up behind, that's 1, that's 2, that's 2.5. I guess I should mention stacking limits. Stacking limits are 6 strength points plus 1 artillery counter. The artillery strength doesn't count for stacking, just the infantry strength, or if there was cavalry on the board, that would count. So second Ansbach is 4 strength points. First Ansbach is 4 strength points. Therefore, they can't stack. That would be 8, and your limit is 6, plus a single artillery piece can always stack. And leaders stack for free. He can move 6. That's 1. That's 2. That's 3. Again, he could not go 3.5 because you can't use strategic movement to come adjacent to an enemy. And what this is really portraying is the fact that you're in column, but you now have to deploy into line of battle to close on the enemy, and the execution of that takes a little bit of time. All right, let's come over here to these units. This is the King's American Regiment, the yellow stripe. That means they're loyalist infantry fighting for the British. And these 2 units have a white box around their movement value. That's just a visual cue to remind you that on the first turn of the game only, they're not eligible for that strategic movement. So they're restricted to regular movement only. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. Now, scrolling up here, just real quick, you'll see that they start at this intersection. They could go this way, 1, 2, 3, 4. They could go this way, 1, 2, 3, 4. And as a player, if you want to commit them to either flank when the game begins, you can certainly do that. But for me, I like to bring them up the road in the middle to see how the American player is going to respond to the British approach. And once they get here, they can then go left or right, as the case may be. There's one other unit back here. I got to get rid of this thing. It's bothering me. There he is. This is the von Hein Regiment. He also has that white box around his movement, which is reminding us on turn 1 only, he cannot use strap movement. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, moving up to the East Road, here we have our British. Now, remember, the British player cannot look at American stacks, but this is the opening turn of the game, and the deployment is common knowledge. So any British player is going to know that in this stack right here, the game starts with an American artillery piece, and the range of artillery is 3 field guns. So that's 1, 2, 3 out here to hex 3126. Now at maximum range with a 1 strength point gun, the odds are very low of getting a hit. Nevertheless, I don't want to tempt fate. And so I'm going to stop short of getting to that hex. I bring my light infantry up, 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3, just out of range. Then I'm going to bring up the 22nd Foot, 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3. The Grenadiers will join them. That's 5 strength points. 1/2 1, 2, and 3. And the artillery, 1, 2, and 3. And Brigadier Smith, I think we'll put him right there. Okay, so the British player has opened the game with his movement phase. The next phase is defensive artillery fire, but I'm out of range of this field gun. It has a range of 3. It cannot reach out here to this light infantry. That then takes us to close combat. We have one close combat situation between von der Malsberg and Talbot. As the game develops, and particularly in the larger games in the series where you have many, many, many more counters and long lines of battle, you might find yourself coming into a combat phase with, oh, I don't know, 4 or 6, maybe even 7 or 8 combat situations. The rules of the game require you to pre-declare all your combat before you resolve any of it. You're not allowed to fight a battle, see how it goes, and then say, okay, I'll next fight over here. You must pre-declare all of them, then execute them in any order that you wish. In this case, though, we only have one battle, so it speaks for itself. Now to execute the close combat, and let me enlarge this screen a little bit so we can really get granular on this. By the way, just a quick plug for the BoAR series in general. We try very hard to be authentic right down to the uniforms that the various regiments are wearing. So you'll notice the 1st and 2nd Ansbach, while similar, do have different uniform treatment. And the chasseurs are dressed appropriately here, and so is the American Light Infantry. First thing you do is compare the odds. Well, it's 2 to 1, so that's 2 to 1. The next thing you do is compare the unit morale of your lead unit. Well, in this case, there's only a single unit attacking a single unit, and so the unit morales are obvious and apparent. It's +2 versus +1 for a net +1 to the attacking British player's favor. But if there were a stack here of units, remember you can stack up to 6 strength points, and you might have an assortment of units in there with different unit morales. The attacking player always declares his lead unit first. Then the defending player declares his lead unit. And you look at the 2 unit morales and you come up with the net difference. Why does that matter? Well, of course, you want to try to achieve a superior morale over your enemy in the attack for that die roll modifier, but keep in mind, whoever you choose as a lead unit is obliged to take damage. So if there were a stack of Hessian units here, and and I chose von der Malsburg, and the net result of the battle is attacker disrupted or attacker loses step loss, I can't then choose some other unit to take that damage. I have to take it from the unit I declared as my lead unit. So in this case, 2-1 with a net +1 to the attacking Hessian player. As it turns out, there are no other modifiers here. Von Lossberg, the leader, would actually have to be stacked in the combat in order to pick up his modifier of 1, but he's not stacked. It's not a surround situation. I don't have Hessian units surrounding Talbot. Talbot is not behind a creek or on the upslope side of a hill. There are, in this case, simply no other modifiers to bring to bear. So it's going to be a 2-1 attack with a +1 modifier for the attacker. Now we go to tactics selection. I'm going to come up here to my cards, counters. Is it counters? No, it's oh, where is it? Charts. There we go. This is the tactics matrix. Now we would be picking these in secret, and that's done with this thing. Hang on. Counters. No. I think Rob has dropped off the call. Where are my is it charts? No, it's not charts. I'm not a VAL expert, guys. That's why if you just have to bear with me. These are simply all the charts, and that's not what I'm looking for. I'm looking for the tactics chits, and they should be under counters. But I'm not seeing it.
Would they be under cards, Mick?
No, it's not cards.
Okay.
It's not charts. It's not cards. It should be in counters. But
Mick, I'm not seeing any counters when you click on the counters.
no, I'm not either. So I don't know why it's not functioning. But when you normally click on the counters button, you get map markers, unit markers, you get things where you can put the disruption counters down, rally markers, and in that menu there's the 8 tactics counters that show what turning flank and frontal assault look like, skirmish and so on. Well, for some reason it's not coming up. I don't know why, but we'll just go ahead and pick off of this. And
We'll have those counters at the convention.
Yeah, they're part of the box game. I mean, you have them in the game set. I don't know why it's not coming up here. But anyway, so let me just think about this. Von der Malsburg is a demi leader. He's going to be able to pick any of these 8 tactics across the top here where it says attacker. Von der Malsburg knows that Talbot does not have leadership. There is no leader here with Talbot. So Talbot is restricted to only picking from among these 4 defensive tactics. Well, I don't want Talbot to get away. I don't want a no combat result because that would allow Talbot to get away. So I'm not going to pick any attacking tactic that potentially would lead to a no combat. I can attack an echelon. I can frontal assault. I can commit reserves. I can turn flank. Hey, I'm chasseurs. I'm light infantry. I think I will try to turn the flank. Okay. So what I would do, if I could open the module properly, is I'd get the little turn flank counter and I'd drag it down to the map. As Talbot now, I'm thinking, all right, I've got to pick one of these 4, but my attacking opponent has all 8 to choose from. I've got to be very careful. He's probably, and this would be me, this would be my own logic. He probably wants to prevent me from withdrawing, so I'm not going to choose withdrawal. I have these others to pick from. If I pick stand fast, there's a possibility that he'll get a +2. If I pick skirmish, there's a possibility that he'll get a +2. But if I pick attack and echelon and I read across, there's no possibility, no matter what he picks, that he'll get a +2. So I'm going to argue for the best defense is offense, and I'm going to pick attack and echelon as the defender. So now we reveal our tactics chits and we cross-reference. The attacker turned the flank. The defender picked attack and echelon. The net is a +1. Pluses help the attacker, negatives help the defender. So I add this +1 DRM to the +1 DRM I get for having a net +1 on morale. That gives me a DRM of 2. 2-to-1 attack with a DRM of 2. So I come up here to my dice. Where are the dice? Oh, there they are. This is in the way too. There's our dice. Red dice for the British player. I roll it. 5 plus a die roll modifier of 2 is 7. Net 7, and I come back in here to my charts. I find the combat results table, 2-to-1 column, net of 7. The result is no damage to the attacker, / the defender is disrupted. So I come over here to my unit. Oops. Where is he? Where'd I go? Whoops. Here I am. I right-click on Talbot. I pick Disrupted. And the Vassal module puts a red border around it. It identifies with this little red D in a yellow circle. And if we look up here on the Army morale track, we see that the American Army morale has degraded by 1 for having become disrupted. This was his at start. The British did not go up. When you disrupt an opponent, you don't gain, but the opponent loses. The opponent can recover this morale with a successful rally when it's his turn. Okay. So now that's the end of the game, first half of the game turn. Come over here to the turn track, move it down to the bottom half, flip the marker over to the American player's side. And the American player now gets to respond. Disrupted units can only move 1 hex per the rule. So,
question, Mike.
Yes, sir.
You were looking for chits for those tactics. Are they not cards? Tactics cards? Because I was looking on the counter sheets there. I don't see any chits for that. But I
right.
think they're
In the game. In the hard game that you have there, they are cards.
okay.
In fact, there's a deck of 8. Each card has that little matrix printed right on the card, so you don't have to necessarily even use the player aid card.
Okay, tactic cards.
That's
okay.
it. Yes, that's it.
All right, got it.
Whereas in the Vassal module, however, they are chits.
Okay, got it.
And the one thing I neglected to do, when I disrupted Talbot, he got his disruption. He degraded the Army morale. He has a mandatory 3 hex retreat. Historically, gentlemen, Talbot fell back to this hilltop. He was attacked by von der Malsburg. He was disrupted historically. He fell back to this high ground. but I'm not going to go there because I've got the King's American Regiment coming up that road in the center. And the last thing I want to do is get flanked. So I'm going to drop back 1, 2, 3 hexes straight back on the road like that. And I think I will. This is tough now because the Americans are moving in the bottom half of the turn. They're going to get a chance to rally Talbot. We don't know who goes next. If the British player goes next, then the Hessian units are going to be able to catch up to Talbot. Even the first Donspach back here would be able to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And certainly von der Malsburg could get there. And that would be kind of an overwhelming attack. And I don't know whether I want to bring Lawrence up either in the face of that potentiality. On the other hand, if the Americans go first, then they could steal a march, as it were, and pull further back. And since the American player is holding momentum when the game starts, and since momentum can be used to influence the initiative die roll, I'm going to gamble on spending it in a minute for initiative, and I'm not going to commit Lawrence here. Instead, Lawrence is going to back up here into the cornfield, still exerting a zone of control over the road junction and creating a little bit of a flank support for Talbot. Okay. Before I move Livingston's men, let me point out the colors that are printed for the combat and movement values. You'll notice that Lawrence's 2 men are orange. Lawrence is a demi-leader, but only for himself and Talbot. And it's easy to remember that because they're both orange. Colonel Livingston is an actual leader. He's got leader values, but only for the men in his command, which are the ones printed yellow. These guys here and Wigglesworth way back here, printed yellow. He's part of Livingston's command. Back here, the rest of the American Army, most of them are printed black, just like the British players' units are printed black. But there are 4 units back here printed white. Those 2. Sullivan's Guard is printed in white, and Shepherd is printed in white. And those distinctions have to do with sortie restrictions. The main American Army back here, I'll go smaller just so you can see it again. They're in defensive positions back here at the top of the island. They're sortie restricted until later in the game. They've adopted a defensive posture. General Sullivan is holding them in place. The American player, as the game begins, is really only playing with his rear guards. Livingston's men here and Lawrence's men here. So with that said, let me enlarge again, and let's take a look at what Lawrence wants to do. Now, part of the issue here, Lawrence has this artillery piece, but notice they're not on a road. Hex 3224 is off-road. And so that gun, which only moves 3, is going to slow everything down. You certainly don't want to abandon it at this stage of the game. So my move is going to be predicated on what I can do with that artillery piece. So I'm going to go 1, 2, 3. Now, normally when artillery moves into woods, there's a movement point, extra movement point cost, but I'm entering the woods hex via road. I don't have to be using strategic movement. I only have to be moving from a connected road to a connected road, and that negates terrain. So 1, 2, and by connected road right in there, 3. And we want to put Put the picket guard with him. We want to bring Wade. Light woods only cost 1 for infantry. So coming in this way, 1, 2, we're going to put him there, and we're going to put Jackson's detachment 1, 2, right there. And I think we'll put Livingston himself there. And we're going to pull Wigglesworth up 1/2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, let's go a little smaller so you can kind of see the thing there. Now you may say, well, why did you put this 1 strength point unit by itself out here on the flank? Right now, there's no imminent threat, but again, you don't know who's going to go next, and so on and so on. Why would you gamble a 1 strength unit by itself? Well, there are 2 special units in the game. They're both on the American side. Wade is one of them, and the other one is the 1st Rhode Island Regiment right here. And these are 2-sided 1 strength point units, meaning that if they're required to take a step loss, you flip them over, but nothing else happens. There's no degradation to unit morale. There's no gain or loss of strength points on that table. There's no victory points achieved. It's a free hit on them. So knowing that I can absorb a hit without any consequences, I'm willing to, deploy him to be effective in a role like this on the flank. All right, that's the end of movement. The British have defensive fire, but the only 2 guns they have are well out of range. This one here, this one here. Range for these field guns is 3 hexes. All right, so that then is the end of the first game turn. Now we have to roll for initiative to see who's going to go next. The American player, well, both of us are in high morale. So both of us, in effect, are adding 1 to the initiative die roll because we're in high morale. But I'm going to come down here and I'm going to spend this American momentum chit. It's going to allow me to add 2 more to my die roll. And you have to make that decision before you throw the initiative dice. You can't throw the dice, get a crappy roll, and go, I'm going to spend initiative or rather momentum to add 2 to that. Can't do that. Got to make the commitment before you throw the die. So I'm gambling that this is going to pay off for me for I got ahead of myself. I am going to do that, but I forgot one critical thing. I beg your pardon. And that is after the movement phase, there's rally phase. And I almost overlooked doing that. So I'm going to try to rally Talbot from this disrupted status. You throw a die when you rally. You need a 5 or better net to be successful. You get to add the unit morale of the unit, which is +1. And if I had a leader there, I could add the leader's middle number to it. But I don't. So I'm simply adding +1 to the throw of a die, and I need a 5 or greater to rally. Oh, it's a successful rally. I'm going to right click. I'm going to rally. All those indicators go away. And if we now look at the morale track one more time, we'll see that I'm back to my starting morale. I went down to 12 for the disruption, back to 13 for the rally. So far, so good, right? Now, the rest of my plan, if I can successfully win the initiative by spending momentum, then I can steal a march on the British and I can get Talbot and indeed this whole line further back. So the British are going to throw 2 +1 for being in high morale is 3. The Americans are going to throw 1 plus 1 for being in high morale is 2, plus 2 for spending momentum is 2 more for 4. So the Americans win the initiative with a net 4 to a net 3. And so we come down to the turn track. We show that the Americans are in fact moving first. We're going to get British reinforcements, but they don't show up until it's the British players' half of the turn. So the Americans get that back-to-back move. That was nice. I like the way that worked out as illustrative for you. We gambled, we rallied, and then we invested our momentum chit to attempt to win the initiative in order to get out of harm's way, and it worked out. Doesn't always work out, but it did in this case. So now we're going to fall back and get away from these Hessians here. We're going to go 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3, and we're going to take a position over this bridge. Lawrence will join him now. 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3. Now we're going to pull the American artillery back. 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 2.5. With a range of 3, gentlemen, you'll notice that I now can cover the approach to the bridge with the American artillery in this position right here. And I had brought Wigglesworth up to be in support of that artillery unit. The rest of the units are just going to continue their falling back. Jackson, 1, 2. Let's see. Okay. 1, 2.5. And 1, 2, 3.5. So I've got 4 strength points in each group. I've got my leader and his modifiers here. I've got my artillery piece here. And Lawrence is consolidated with his guys behind the creek, guarding the bridge. That's not bad. It's not a bad defensive posture. Let's see what the British can do with that. Obviously, I'm way out of range for British defensive fire. Come over here, advance the game turn marker down, flip it over. And when I right click on this reinforcement unit, I can send it directly to the reinforcing hex, which is over here, right there. Bauermeister, that's 4 artillery pieces, as you see there. All right, let's move him first. 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3. Let's bring up the Ansbach regiment. 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3, 1/2 4. Von der Malsberg will stack with them. That's my maximum stack of 6 strength points. We're going to bring the leader, von Lossberg. He can move, in effect, 12 along the road, so he'll come up. The Hessian artillery here, that's 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3. And I think the second Ansbach will stay with him. Now, I should point out that when you're in close combat situations, artillery units have no close combat value. It's just the gun crew. And so when you're doing rear echelon stuff, it's pretty convenient and safe to keep your artillery by itself. It's just moving up, trying to get up to the front. But when you're in proximity with the enemy, and especially since it's not an I go, you go game, the initiative is never certain. And so when you're in proximity to the enemy, it's always wise to keep infantry support with the artillery. Otherwise, the artillery can be overrun. It will get its, if an enemy unit moves up to an unsupported artillery piece, yes, the artillery piece will get its shot. But if it misses, then the attacking enemy infantry will just step in and capture it. So I'm going to elect to support this Hessian gun with the Ansbachers, just because I'm close. You know, these roads are pretty connected here. If the movement sequence goes against me, the next thing I know, I'll know I have Americans on my flank here. So, all right, 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3, 1/2 4, 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3. All right. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4. So let's go 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3, 1/2 4, 1/2 1, 2, 3, 3.5. 1/2 1, 2, 3. We'll support that artillery with the grenadiers and with the leader. And let's bring our light infantry 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. I think all the British and Hessian units have moved. There's only one American gun, range of 3. It's out of range of everything. So that is the end of game turn 2. So far, there's been no opportunity to use any of the cards we've drawn. We just want to keep in mind what, the British have superior gunnery for their flotilla, and they have stone walls. If they're being attacked, they can declare they're behind stone walls. And of course, the Americans have shore battery. All right, we'll go to the top of turn 3. Now the British are the ones poised for a back-to-back move. Nobody's holding momentum, so no one's going to be able to influence this initiative die roll. And both armies are in high morale, so both are adding +1. So let's see. The British throw a 2 + 1 is 3. The Americans throw a 0 + 1 is 1. So the British get their chance at a back-to-back move. Come over here, drop that onto the top. We're going to send reinforcements to the entry hex. And in this case, the British reinforcements have shown up way up here. We've got the 54th Foot, the Prince of Wales Loyalist Regiment, and Pemble's Artillery Battery. And you'll notice this box, no strategic movement on turn of entry. So that means these guys are restricted to regular movement only. 1, 2, 3, 4. It would be a stacking violation to put this 3 strength on top of that 5 strength. So he's got to go there. But guns stack for free. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And down here. 1, 2, 3, using strategic movement. 1, 2, 3, 4. I just realized last turn I forgot to move on Hein, but that's the breaks, when you're If we're playing a teach and play and you were to have done that, you just neglected to move a piece or something, well, it's a friendly game. So, we would allow for that. But in the tournament, it's not a touch move, you can move a piece and realize you want to move it again or move it back or change your move. That's all fine so long as you're in the movement phase. But when you move on to the next phase of a turn, or indeed in this case, it's the next game turn, and I recognized, oh crap, I didn't move von Hein last time. Yeah, you're out of luck. The regimental colonel told them all to take 10 and sit on the side of the road or something.
Hey, Mick,
Okay.
we're an hour and a half in. Maybe we target to end, if anybody's going to stay with us, maybe we target to end at 8 o'clock. Or I'm sorry, 11 o'clock your time. So
That's fine. I'm just on a roll here. I'm just going. So
yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I'd like to see how this develops, but at the same time, it's getting late there. 2 hours, I think, is adequate, and we need to keep them wanting more, right?
yeah. And so, let me mention this. I know it'll burn 3 minutes or 5, but it's worth mentioning. The Battle of Rhode Island, as it plays, is really it really plays out in 3 phases. The first phase of the game occurs where the British are pursuing the retreating American rear guard, and you've seen me execute that. The British have overwhelming numbers. Their reinforcements are streaming in as Pigot sends more and more men to the front. The Americans don't want to fall back too fast. They're trying to screen these victory hexes as long as possible, but they also can't fight forward too aggressively, or they'll get bested. The second phase of the game occurs on and around Turkey Hill and Quaker Hill, the battle for these victory objectives, and they're treated differently. If the American player holds both of them, he earns a victory point at the end of game turn 6, but he must hold both. If the British player holds one of them, he gets not a victory point, but an opportunity card. And if he holds both of them, he gets 2 opportunity cards, but that calculus occurs at the end of turn 7. So a VP to the Americans after turn 6, or opportunity cards to the British after turn 7. And it gets really interesting the way in which that all develops and unfolds in this part of the map board, and especially after turn 5, when some of these rear units are released and they can come forward. And then the third and final phase of the game, we assume the British will ultimately take both of these hills, and then it's the main show. It's the full American army against the full British army, and that fighting takes place in the valley between these 2 hills here and this high ground here. Most of that's going to occur around the artillery redoubt in most cases, because again, that's a victory objective. So the game will have 3 distinct feels to it as it unfolds. So I think that's worth saying now, since we're going to be wrapping up in a few more minutes. I'll just go ahead then and push up and make an attack here. So 1, 2, it's +1 to cross a stream if it doesn't have a ford or a bridge, and it's costs no extra to enter light woods. So again, 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, 4. One, 2, 3, 4, 5. Leaders can move 6, so I'll put him there. and the light infantry 1, 2, 3, 4. There's no penalty for light infantry moving through corn. The corn only affects the movement of artillery. Okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, I'm going to come down the slope by way of this road. So roads negate terrain. So that's 1, 2, 3 to get across the creek. And then I'll bring him to the bridge. We'll put the leader 1, 2, 3 on this side. And 1, 2, let's bring 1, 2, 3. Let's just put them there. And I think I haven't moved him yet. So 1, 2, 3, and 1/2 1, 1/2 2. Whoop, sorry. 1/2 1, 1/2 2, 1/2 3, 1/2 4, and 1, 2, 3. And I think that's everybody. Okay. So whether or not I would have attacked like this, given a little more time to dwell on it, I don't know, but this will give us, you know, a couple more combats to look at. Now, it's defensive artillery fire, so you see that Jackson's battery here in the center can fire 2 hex range at the 22nd foot. It can fire 3 hex range at the first Anspach. If I knock the first Anspach back by either retreating him or disrupting him, then von der Malsburg with 2 strength points would be going against Lawrence with 3 strength points at a disadvantaged odds ratio. Von der Malsburg would still have the advantage on unit morale and leadership for the die roll modifiers. Whereas if I knock the 22nd foot back, that leaves the British with 5, 6, 7 against 4. 7 to 4 is 3 to 2. So I'm going to fire at first Anspach over here in the hopes of pushing him out of this fight. 1 strength point at a range of 3 charts. Artillery. 1 strength point is firing. Range to target is 2 to 3 hexes. I have to throw a 9 in order to achieve a hit. Assuming I do achieve a hit, I then come down on the damage table, firing at non-artillery to determine what the nature of that damage is. Looking again real quick at the ground, hiding units. The first Anspach is right there. That's clear terrain. It's not covered terrain. If I was in woods or something, it would be harder to hit, but I'm not. So I need a 9 to score a hit. Here's the shot. 4 is a miss. So that's lucky for the Hessians. All right. Let's do this attack first since we're down here. The Hessians are 4 plus 2 is 6 against 3. That's a 2 to 1 attack. My lead unit is going to be von der Malsburg again with plus 2 unit morale. And I'll pick Lawrence because very typically 1 strength point units don't have a reverse side. So if Talbot takes a hit, he's eliminated. That would be a victory point. Whereas if Lawrence gets hit and is flipped, that's just a half a victory point. So I'll lead with Lawrence. He's a little more resilient. He's a +1. So my net is +1 on unit morale, 2 versus 1. And I have von Lossberg in the attack this time. He's stacked there. So he can add his first number, which is his close combat modifier. So that's a total of net +2. And now we go into tactics. Again, that's going to be charts. That's going to be tactics. Both sides have leadership, so both sides can command, can select from all 8 tactics. I've got my tactics cards from my set in front of me, and I'm just going to, rather than belaboring the point, I'm just going to pull blind out of there and see what we get. The British have chosen frontal assault, and the Americans have chosen stand fast. Ooh, that's good for the Americans. Frontal assault for the British, for the Hessian attacker against stand fast for the American defender is a -1. You want negative numbers as a defender. So I was at +2, 1 for unit morale differential, and 1 for the leader. I'm now -1 from that, brings me down to a simple +1. +1 on the close combat table at 2-to-1 odds. Here's the die roll. An 8 + 1 is 9 at 2-to-1. That's a step loss right there. So we get to see what that looks like. I'll take a step loss on Lawrence. Okay, so you'll notice, I'll make this larger. You'll notice that Lawrence's counter has been flipped over. He's now a 1-4. Notice his unit morale did not degrade. Typically, when a unit is flipped, like if this first Donspach were to be flipped, his reverse side unit morale is -1. Normally, when a unit flips, it not only loses strength, it loses morale. But Lawrence is an elite unit, and he does not suffer a morale degradation, even though he lost strength. And this little yellow bar in Vassal reminds us that you're looking at the reverse side of the counter. And if we come up to the Army morale track now, you'll see here that, whoops. You'll see here that not only did the Americans go down 1 for taking the step loss, the British went up 1 for causing the step loss. And so now there's more separation here, which is you know, something to remain vigilant about. Both armies still in high morale. When the lead unit takes a step loss, nothing else happens to the lead unit. It's holding its ground. It absorbed the damage. But the other units defending have to do morale checks. If they pass the morale check, they also stand. If they fail the morale check, they retreat. Talbot, therefore, adds 1 to his die roll because that's his unit morale. He needs a 5 or better. He gets a 5, plus 1 is 6, so he's stout. He remains right there in full support of Lawrence, and that's the end of the combat. If he had failed that morale check, he would do a simple retreat of 1 hex. He wouldn't be able to go to 2317 because of the Hessian zone of control there, but he would be able to go either straight down the road or over here. All right, up here, the other attack, I think we said, I see 5 and 4 is 9, 10, 11 against 4. So that's 2-to-1. It's not 3-to-1. I would need 12. I don't have it. I'm going to lead with the British Grenadiers at +2 for unit morale. Over here, I'm going to lead with Wade. Why am I using Wade? Remember, he's one of the 2 special units the Americans have who can take a hit without any consequences. And so, of course, you're going to lead with him if he's present. Why wouldn't you? The next thing you look at is leaders. Well, Smith adds 1, Livingston adds 1, so that's a wash. Leaders cancel each other out. It's a 2-to-1 attack with a net +1 in unit morale. And again, let me just pull blind out of my physical copy of the cards here. The British have chosen to stand fast. Maybe they're expecting something squirrely on the part of the American player. The American player, again, both sides have access to all the cards because they have leadership. The American player is refusing his flank. So let's see what that looks like. Charts. Tactics. So the attacker is standing fast. The defender is refusing his flank. Down here, no additional die roll modifiers is what that means. Both sides have adopted a defensive posture, and therefore that makes perfect sense. So it's a 2-to-1 plus 1. Here's the roll. 9 plus 1 is 10. Ooh, I'm glad I get to show you this. 9 plus 1 is 10. 2-to-1 odds with a net of 10. Ooh. Oh. All right. First thing that happens, we're going to take a step loss on the American lead unit. Next thing that happens, this asterisk tells us that if a leader is present, he is a casualty of this combat. And the third thing that happens, this red dot tells us that the attacker has just gained momentum. So a lot of things to look at there. That's really good stuff. We're going to come up here. We're going to go to Wade. We're going to take a step loss on Wade. However, there's no Army morale adjustment because of Wade's special status. Let me pull that across. You'll see the American morale has not moved. Wade can take that damage without any consequences, that first step of damage. Okay, the next thing, let me pull my chart back up here. Just having trouble navigating all these components here. Bear with me. Get back to the action. Where are we? We're over here. All right. So that was that. Now we have an asterisk, which means Livingston is eliminated. All right. He's going to go suddenly up to the eliminated box. There he is. And we're going to come over here to the leader summary table. And we find Livingston is worth a half a victory point. The British gain nothing for killing him, but the American army loses a point of army morale. And you've already seen that that's just happened, down from 12 to 11. And the third thing that happens is the attacking British player, because of this high outcome, that red dot tells us he picks up momentum. So we come down to the bottom of our map here, to the momentum track. And that's over here. Oop. Get rid of this, it's in my way. And we're going to add a chit. So the British now have momentum, which allows them to try to influence initiative and or buy a card and or call back an adverse combat result. And that, now we have to roll, because there was a casualty suffered, we have to roll morale for Jackson's detachment to see if he holds his ground or retreats. He's going to add 1, still in high morale. He needs a 5 or better. 8 plus 1 is 9. He's fine. He holds his ground. And that's the end of that combat. So a lot in there, and that's good because I was able to show you some of those other potential outcomes in the way in which combat is resolved. Any questions, any thoughts, any comments?
I'm looking forward to playing it.
I appreciate that, Dennis. again, in a teach and play, I'll be there to, you know, not coach players on what moves to make, but walking players through the sequence, the steps. Okay, do this next, consider this next, look at that next. Of course, in the tournament, you know, we are a little more
Oh,
silent about some of that stuff because
I'll be in the teach and play, definitely.
yeah. Any other thoughts or comments or questions about either mechanics or the overall situation in the game, or the, you know, the core system of the game, or anything at all that I can address before we wrap up?
Hey, quickly, I'll add it's a very smooth flowing system, and I don't have enough experience in it yet, but I'm looking forward to this opportunity. A logistical note, given the teach and play sessions that'll be going on, as well as the tournament, do you need players to bring their own copies, or will you have a stack you'll be working from, or how will that work?
I know Rob Doan will make his copy available, and I'll have, well, I'm flying, so I have to be mindful of my, you know, checked baggage and my carry-on and stuff. I'm bringing a copy because everybody, I forgot to say this earlier, Andy, but everybody, in addition to getting the button, everybody that enters the teach and play will be in a raffle drawing for a shrink wrapped copy of Rhode Island. So I'm going to bring the shrink wrapped copy. I'm going to bring my own copy to play. Rob Doan will have his own copy to play. I know the guys, the 3 or 4 guys that have committed to playing in the tournament, they're going to bring their games. But I would say, yes, if you have a hard copy, Dennis or Andy, please bring it, whether you're teach and play or whether you're tournament. I mean, worst case, we just don't need it. But I would hate to not be able to let somebody have their experience because we're short a copy.
I will bring my copy.
Oh, well, there you go.
Sure.
So we're probably safe, but certainly if it's okay and you can bring it, then I would ask you to. And thank you for saying that about the flow. There's one other step in the sequence of play that I didn't illustrate, because at this battle, there were no significant rifle armed units on either side. But in most BoAR games, you have a smattering of rifle armed units, and they have their own fire phase that is part of the sequence, is a distinct part of the sequence of play. It works similarly to artillery fire. You know, you fire your rifles, you look at the charts, you see if you hit, you look at damage. But in Rhode Island, doesn't apply. It becomes very intuitive. Flows make sense. Once you pick up, you can. I'm allowing 3 hours for a heat of Rhode Island, but I would tell you in perfect candor that between 2 players who know the game, or at least the core BoAR system, this is a 1.5 to 2 hour scenario, generally speaking. But I'm allowing 3 because of the level of inexperience that we're going to run into.
I'll be in the inexperienced crew, but I hope to become part of the experienced crew.
Great. Well, you know, I'll let Harold toot my horn. I won't toot my own horn, but I think most players who like BoAR end up loving BoAR. I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that. So we've had a loyal following for 25 years, and it just keeps growing, if you can believe that. So that's something anyway.
Well, and the opportunity to actually be walking through the map literally hours before, and then going to the battle map, that's quite exceptional.
So
huge point.
we will see the Butts Hill Fort for certain. Right here is the Overring House. I have to ask Rob if this is a restored historic site or not. Let me hide units and get us back to this part of the map right here. This was where von der Malsburg attacked Talbot on the first turn tonight in my demo. The Henry Overring House. It was in this house that Prescott, Major General, who was commanding at Rhode Island before Pigot, was captured in a night raid by some picked American stealth guys like ninjas. You know, they came in the dark of night. This was his advanced headquarters. They came in the dark of night and took him in his bedclothes, and he was a prisoner of war. He was later exchanged and returned to Rhode Island in time to be at this battle. And he did lead that night attack during the battle during Rhode Island. But this house, because of all of that, you know, it may still be there. I don't know. I'll ask Rob. But if it is, we'll check it out. The other sites that I want to show you guys are not on this side of the map. They're on the Newport side of the map, on the reverse side of this map, if you have the hard copy. We'll go up on Honeyman Hill and look at where the American earthworks were. We'll go to British Cards Redoubt. We'll go to Tammany Hill Fort. That was part of the British outer defensive line around Newport itself. So that'll allow us to talk about the siege, whereas up on this end of the island, we'll talk more about the actual battle. That's it for me, Harold.
Excellent. Mick, thanks as always. I love hearing you talk about your game. I've got a bunch of questions that I might just save until we get to Newport about where you came up with some of the concepts for the game. Not appropriate for tonight, but you've got me curious. So thank you for doing that, Mick. Appreciate you taking the time. I'm going to stop the recording now. And if you got a minute, even though it's late, I'd like to pick your brain on something. So thanks, everybody. And if you have questions about the game, feel free to hit up Mick or myself. I will get you to Mick, and look forward to playing the game at the convention.
Terrific. And I do appreciate both Dennis and Andy, and I know Mike was on a little bit earlier, and Tim. I do appreciate you guys, you know, giving me some time this evening.
Exceptionally well presented, very clear and understandable. Did an excellent job.
Thank you, Dennis.
I second that.